Hi, everyone. It's so great to see all of you. The biggest part of any endeavor is showing up. So I congratulate you all for being here. And I just love seeing your faces. And it is August 21st. And we're just kind of continuing the discussion from last week. And we're going to talk about some guidelines um, uh, for future sessions, and I think they're pretty good guidelines for a lot of group things. So I hope they help you. So let's start with our icebreaker. We talk about a lot of tough stuff in here, and the icebreaker is just a good kind of easy, low stress way to get to know each other, kind of just a playful way of entering the room. So we'll just say the name that you want to be called tonight and the answer to the icebreaker question. And Leo's gonna give us that.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Leo. My pronouns are, I guess, any of them is fine. Um, let's see. And the icebreaker question today is: would you rather find a mouse in your bed, a snake in your toilet, or someone's hair in your food?
Oh!
Here are your
My goodness.
Oh!
Oh my gosh, those are not, none of those are pleasant. Okay.
I guess I would have to go with a mouse in my bed, and hopefully my cat would do something about it. but
she doesn't.
But she's too friendly. But she's too friendly.
She brought a cat in, a mouse in her once, and she just let it be. She was like, "It's fine."
Oh my god.
It's
Oh,
fine. Okay, hi, my name's Jared. Pronouns he, him, she, her, they, them, all of the above, right? All the pronouns. And honestly, I would rather have hair in my food. Cause like one involves like having in the ethical dilemma of like, do I keep the mouse alive or do I keep the snake alive? And yeah, that's too much. Yeah. Give me hair.
okay.
Hi, Lynn.
Oh, hi, Lynn.
Hi, Lynn.
All right. Alec?
My name is Alex, he, him, and mouse in my bed because Manu would pounce on it.
Okay. All right. Chelsea, are you where you can answer?
Yeah, I'm just not feeling well, so I'm laying down. That's why I have my camera off. But so my name is Chelsea, she, her pronouns. And I think, of course, the biggest question is, do we know if the hair is in the food or not? But my first thought, and it was so funny listening to everyone say, I guess a mouse in the bed, because my first thought was absolutely not with a mouse in my bed, and absolutely freaking not with a snake in my toilet. Absolutely not. So I'll take the hair any day because I mean, once it goes in my mouth and it goes in my stomach, I don't have to deal with it again. No trauma there.
Wow. Okay, good reasoning. All right, Kreger.
I'm gonna have to go with the mouse in my bed because I have a traumatic childhood story where my family and I were in a restaurant in St. Petersburg, Florida, eating, and I don't know, I was less than 10 years old, and there was a stick of butter on the table, and I found there was a piece of hair. I found a piece of hair, and so I pulled on the hair, and the hair kept coming through and coming through the butter, and all the while the butter was sticking to the sides of the hair. And so by the time I got the hair all the way out of the butter, I was going to have to vomit like So I'm going with the mouse. That's why I screamed when Leo said that. Like, no, no, you didn't.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm Carol, she, her, and none of those sound very pleasant to me. Lynn, where the question is, which of the three would you prefer? First I thought, well, I've been kind of wanting to get more snakes on my land, so some bull snakes, so that they would eat the prairie dogs, but 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 in my toilet, I don't know. I might could never go to the bathroom again. I don't think I can do that. And I had once I was when I lived in Amarillo, I had had this custom built house with a not a very good builder, and a mouse crawled because they didn't seal the floor right. A mouse crawled into my bathtub while I was in it. And oh my God, you've never, I mean, I don't think I had moved that fast since I was 10. Oh my God, I just jumping out of that tub naked and screaming. And it was no. So usually when I see a hair in the food, I assume it's my own. So, I shed a lot, so that doesn't seem terribly traumatic to me. So I'm gonna go with the hair in the food. So that was a long explanation. I'm sorry. I always say keep it short, but I didn't stick to my own rule. I apologize. So Lynn, you're the last one then.
Man, she, her, uh, hair in the food, I'll vomit. I'll just take the vomit, but no mouse, no snake. Just transport me to another planet, please, or something. After I vomit, I'll take the hair in the food.
Okay. All right. Well, at least we got some laughs out of that one. I was kind of worried about that one. Oh my goodness. So, speaking of that, we talk about some tough stuff in this group. We have talked about racism for the last couple of sessions, and I want to just really thank Jared for giving us the gift of feedback last week. And I and also just extend a public apology for the pain that was caused within this group that was mentioned in that session. And at and I want to extend the offer of feedback to continue whenever it comes up, or whenever it's or whenever. And I really want to try to do things better. So that's my commitment, and I bet some other people that were present then at that or saw it later would extend the same thing. If although I feel like I'm the one as moderator that needs to take the responsibility. So I'm doing that. All right. I I I just there's a book that I've been reading that I just think that has I just wanted to tell you all about. It's called The Fifth Sacred Thing by Starhawk. It's has anybody read it? That's it's a series of books. The first two were written in the 90s, and it's kind of shocking how much like today they are in terms of like germ warfare causing pandemics, and some of the militant actions that I mean, it goes way above and beyond the militant actions that the group is taking, even with the world, or specifically the U.S. divided by law in terms of racial purity. But there's like this area in California where there's kind of, I think you'd call it utopia that was built up, and there you don't really see a lot of racism. You don't even see a lot of jealousy. You don't see homophobia. You see not much violence, and it's taken care of without without needing a police force. There's not a significant hierarchy. Everything is kind of decided in groups, and everybody has a purpose, and everybody works. And that's some of the criticism of the book, is that it's just a little too overly optimistic. One of the I was introduced to this book. We read a few chapters for that class that I was in, that I told y'all about. And one of them, I thought this was a brilliant way to put it, said, "The optimism is what places this book squarely in the genre of fiction." But I don't know. I loved it, and I'm going on to read the next of the books. And when I read some of the book reviews on on just some of the book reviews, they said that some of them said, I love this society that they have brought forward and just shown us what could be possible. And but how did they get there? How did they deal with the racism? So I'm hoping the second book starts to talk about that. It already has. I'm just in like in the early chapters, but it's all got to start on an individual level. And so I think that's kind of what we came to last week with our discussions, and that's certainly what I came to. That's what I've been just wrestling with this whole week, is what I do personally, and how I look internally. In the book, it's just got this. It's kind of a prequel. The second part of the series is a prequel, and it's talking about how these two women, one white and one black, first get together while they're tripping on acid in the 70s. But how some of the prejudices came up during that opening up that the acid caused, and how they dealt with that. They first dealt with it by becoming lovers. So reaching out and touching. But that's not going to work for a lot of situations. But it's still an individual thing. And that was my point. That was kind of a long story to introduce that this is an individual thing. And so Jared and Leo have shared some of their experiences of racism, of trauma. I mean, they specifically did last week. They're not the only ones throughout these sessions who have, but the white people in this group can never share in that in those experiences. But I mean, we can sympathize, but we can't. We don't experience it in the same way ourselves. So we need to learn from others, and we can sit in the muck together, which is part of what we talked about last time. So Jared and Leo, you had your hand up first before Kreger. Did you take it down on purpose, or did you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I just took it down just to say that last week was like my favorite session. So out of all the God talks. And I've loved a lot of God talk sessions because, you know, I mean, as a clinician, I love authenticity. And last week was the most emotionally vulnerable. And so like, it was great. Keep it up.
And,
I'm sorry I wasn't here to witness it.
It was amazing, Alec. Yeah. And
It-
Lynn.
and you can watch it. You can watch it.
It's on camera. Yeah, you can watch it.
So it has been posted, and I will say that okay, this is not original, and the person who said it can claim it if they want, but but you know, I'm uncomfortable, so it must have been good. That's all right, Kreger.
Okay, so I have a question for the group. So today I saw in a news feed. Oh, it was Reverend Terry Steed Pierce from Joy MCC in Orlando put a posting on Facebook and said they have painted over our rainbow crosswalk at in the middle of the night by the Pulse nightclub where 49 of our people were slaughtered. And so they just put, you know, regular white stripes on the road. And so I got to thinking about that. And my question what for the group is, do you all think that that was an act of racism to go through and take our pride stripes away? You know, is it possible to be racist against a group of people such as us who are uh, gay, lesbian, transgender, etc., etc.? So, what are your thoughts on that?
Look, I want to say one thing about that before directly answering the question. And I guess I would differentiate racism from you know, from homophobia, transphobia, but they are all based in the same thing. I went to and there's a monthly alumni meeting just to kind of connect and highlight one particular person from our alumni group from my seminary, the Episcopal Divinity School. And today was the day that I got to go to that, and the person who was talking, his name is Monty Teguete, and he has written a book that I just ordered. It's called "It's Not Racism, It's Hatred: Hatred of a Different Skin Color," and he made the points that this is done with some of his postgraduate work, and he's working on some other books. But he made the point that it all stems from the same place. It's a hatred of difference, and I think we touched on that a little bit when we talked about privilege, and he mentioned that too. He's from Zimbabwe, and so when he came to this country, it you know, it was a little jarring. He said he can pass for African American until he opens his mouth, you know, and then he's got such an accent that that you know, it's clear he's from another country, but he had to be kind of schooled on the care that you need to take, like if you're stopped for you know, stopped while you're driving or something like that. And anyway, he said it all has to do with the attempt to degrade, dehumanize, and destroy. And I think it's all you just take these different categories and and decide. I mean, the creators of this construct are kind of deciding, okay, this skin color is best, this sexuality is best, this gender is best, da da da. And then whoever they're targeting gets, you know, is on the other end of the stick. And so, um, so I guess that's a long way of saying, in my opinion, I think it's very much related, and I think racism is at the heart of much of most of the injustices that we see. But I don't uh, I don't see it as exactly the same. Ready to hear other opinions, Alec.
Um, I was gonna say what you said, like it's a different type of bigotry, but it comes from the same place. Um, like you can be racist against, um, like it's the whole intersectionality idea. Um, you know, there are some people within the LGBT community that experience more racism, like Black and Hispanics, than us white folk in the LGBT community. And then, so it's the whole, so like, I guess you could say the burden is greater on those than on us white LGBT people. Um, but I would say it comes from the same place. Like it's like conditions that go hand in hand, you know, like if you're homophobic or racist, you're more likely to find both than one or the other.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. Okay, Jared and Leo.
Actually, I think Chelsea had her hand up first, so I'm gonna just shoot it up to Chelsea. Oh, bad choice of word. My bad.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna zoom on past that. It took me a second, but okay, so kind of where my thought process was going, because funny enough, Craig, are interesting that you brought that up, because I last night just watched a documentary about um that on Paramount Plus, because there was a lot of things that I didn't know about the situation just because it happened so long ago. Um, and really not even that long ago, but 10 years is a long time. But I think after watching that, I can see a lot of correlation where it could be maybe they didn't do that with the intent of being racist, but it's underlying racism. Because when you look back and you think of those victims, the majority of them are people of color. And the majority of the injured are people of color. So, number one, the person who committed that act definitely had like racism and homophobia at the forefront. It's like those two things were kind of hand in hand that night, um, because of the location that was chosen. And when you think of, like, for example, trans women as a whole, Black trans women are at a way higher proportionate rate of being victims of acts of violence and or murdered. Um, and so I think I get where your train of thought was going, where it's like, would that be considered an act of racism? Maybe if, you're just looking at it from an outside perspective and you know nothing about Pulse, you know nothing about the victims, you know nothing about the area, then I could say from an outsider perspective, maybe it wouldn't look like that. But because we know all of these facts, because we know all of these victims, and because we know that there is a systemic racism issue everywhere, I think that maybe their intent was to act with malicious, or I don't even know if that's a word, first of all, to act with malice towards the LGBTQ community. However, it's also an attack on people of color because that's the majority of the victims.
Yes. Okay, Jared and Leo.
Okay, so I'm gonna kinda disagree with everyone so far. and boldly state that yes, yes, the Pulse nightclub is in a not affluent neighborhood, mostly a brown neighborhood. The specific, I mean, we know that there are some racial motivations of the actual, like, how would you say, people who oftentimes write laws, right? And who like tell people to do things, right? And like this whole racism thing like doesn't kind of exist in a vacuum. It kind of like literally from the ground up informs a lot of different beliefs, actions, and behaviors. And I'm gonna be real, like the same like the same population that is currently, in positions of power in Florida, like are very, very racist, very, very racist. And a lot of the behaviors that comes from like homophobia, like they're often not like, when there is like affluent gay people, right? And there are like privileged gay people. There is oftentimes a lack of like actual like enforcement of like rules or like prejudices, as opposed to like in these Pulse nightclub type neighborhoods, right? So like, yeah, like I can definitely see a racial motivation, right? Because like that's like the only space right, like that is a brown that is a more impoverished neighborhood, and there are still a lot of actual pro LGBTQI plus spaces in Florida in spite of all the craziness going on, but like to specifically choose the Pulse nightclub area, right, is definitely like it is at the intersection between race and homophobia. But race is definitely on the menu here. I agree.
Good. I sure didn't realize that had happened, Kreger. I think thank you for bringing that up, and everybody has made some really great points. I wish I'd worn my Pulse shirt instead of my Nevertheless She Preached shirt. But I remember when that happened, and it was just it. Man, that was just devastating, and then I got to go there. That's when I got the T-shirt when we had our general conference there, and when Terry Steed Pierce and her church hosted the general conference. So that's a very moving thing to do. If you're ever in the area, please try to check it out. Okay, Kreger, were you next?
Chelsea was next.
Okay.
Yes, I just wanted to say, Jared, I'm really glad that you brought up like a point of privilege when it comes to like people in the LGBTQ community. Because, like, for example, even though there's issues around women's rights right now, I am a white woman who is feminine presenting. So I can walk down the street and be less likely to be a victim of like a homophobic like hate crime or anything like that, just with me being feminine presenting alone. So like I definitely appreciate you bringing up that part of privilege, because like my wife, she's more masculine presenting, so she's more victim to walk down the street and like have, slurs be hurled at her. And even though like she is Mexican through and through, full-blooded, she is very like fair skin, freckles, she's got red hair. So like, you know, that's one thing that kind of helps her hide a little bit, and it makes me sad because she should be proud to be who she is and where she comes from. Like I've even had to tell her when she's out with her family, like when they were at the airport and everything was going on with them deporting US citizens, I told her, do not speak Spanish with your mom at the airport, please. For the love of God, please do not do that. And I've had to tell her, like, when your family's out at the grocery store, tell them not to speak Spanish, please. And like, it's just been something weighing like heavy on my heart because I'm so fearful that anything can happen to her, to them. And so I'm really glad that you brought up that point of privilege, which is kind of, what we talked about the one before that. What was it, 2 weeks ago? But yeah, just kind of wanted to share that I was really glad that you brought that up.
Kreger?
So we've talked about before on, how can we make God Talk personal? And so I was also at General Conference in 2016 in Orlando, Florida. And Paul and I went to the Pulse nightclub, not once, but we went there twice. And I have lived through countless mass shootings, right? Okay, I'm 62. There's been a mass shooting on the TV every week almost since I can even remember. But since I came from the music world and all that, when I first came out as gay and got to start liking being in the skin that I was in, the gay skin that I was in, one of the things that I loved to do was to dance. And I could be found in Houston at Rich's nightclub on a given Saturday night for my late 30s and 40s. And so when I went to Pulse and I saw and bore witness to what had happened there, I was like, and when it originally happened, I was like, these are my people. These are my people. All they wanted to do was be out there and dance and have a good time. And dancing is wonderful exercise for your body, and so many other good things come. Dancing is spiritual, uh, you know, in some cases. And so it was just deeply personal to me that I told Paul I have to go back. We had to go back a second time. And so when I heard the story that they painted over the colors with just a regular crosswalk. I'm pissed, Jared. Thank you.
Yeah.
And it's good to be that, right? Because like you can do something and point that at the places where it needs to be pointed, because that's very useful, because you can do something in this world. But also,
I want to write to Jerry. I'm like, can I send some money for paint and we can just go paint it back at 3 a.m, just like they did.
There's a funny
just
story.
Like they do.
There's a funny story about that. So, there was, I believe, a hot minute ago, there was this one person in Florida, right? That like their family they had like a daughter that like drowned, and there was like no like safety what's that circle thing, latch. The little circle thing where you can throw out for them to swim, lifesaver. Yes, there was no lifesaver on the dock, right? And so they kind of the family of the deceased kind of started actually advocating for like that sort of change to occur, right? The state would keep pushing back because it's Florida, right?
No one wants to be liable.
No one wants to be liable, right? And so what they did was they literally started bought like one and then like installed it themselves, right? And then the state was like, whoa, no, that's not a state sanctioned one. And so the state would come take it off, right? And then, you know, obviously the optics on that look terrible because, like, you know, obviously you get some of the media's like, wait, so they're taking away these lifesavers, right? Like, what do you mean, right? And so they eventually, after like 2 times of like taking and, you know, like removing the lifesavers, they finally put their own on there, right? And so, like, yeah, that's an act of protest that actually does work, where you just put on the be someone confetti, right, or like whatever thingamajig, and in graffiti, yeah, that's the word, confetti. It's the same thing, right? And instead of waiting for someone to do it.
It would be
Wow.
spectacular if, you know, if Terry, you know, being I mean, and Terry is such a great leader. I don't know if y'all have heard her in person. She was there at Resurrection, since she was there sometime this year, preaching, but she came there for, actually it was Annette Beale's funeral. But Terry is a very strong, very don't mess with her kind of leader. And I'm like, wouldn't it be something if we could organize a community that every time they come and just paint the white stripes over, that we'll get right back out there and we'll paint our colors right back, you know, and until you're going to get out there with guns and try to keep us from joy. Yeah.
If Krager, if you go, let us know. We'll go with you.
I got to get a hold of Terry.
Lynn, I thought you were raising your hand, but maybe you were just moving your hand.
Well, I guess prejudice, which is what racism is, extends to all people who are not like the dominant class or the dominant people in society. So you can call it racism, but it's just prejudice. And it's prejudice against a group of people, which is where homophobia comes in, and transphobia, and you know, Christians versus atheists or secular. It's just prejudice. And that is a condition of the heart. So we have to learn to face it in ourselves and know what our own prejudices are, and when we see it in society, to do something about it. I've certainly lived through my own struggles with racism, growing up in a segregated community and attending segregated schools, traveling between the Mason-Dixon line from the north coming to the south. My first career in Houston, I was the only Black person in the building. And navigating that for 7 years. And I remained the only Black person in the building for the entire time. They did hire one regional manager, but he didn't last very long. And so then I got to a position, and that just kind of skips over my civil rights era, my Angela Davis big afro time. Yeah, that was in my 20s, but I say, you guys know, I say all the time that there is only one race, and it's the human race. And the pigment of our skin is just something that we can't control. I mean, we have no control over it, just as we have no control over, being gay and the way we love and whom we love. So that is a condition of the heart that we have to learn to cope with and to deal with. And one of the things that has helped me is I was in the 1993, I was living in Memphis, Tennessee, and my father was ordained as a deacon down in Orange, Texas. And one of the things that I saw in Memphis was something that I had never run across, and that is the original African Heritage Study Bible, King James Version. And it is a literary masterpiece because it gives the Bible, the entire Bible, from an African perspective. It starts with the premise that the Garden of Eden is in Africa, and that the people that are the people who wrote the Bible, the prophets, were people of color. And so that idea and this Bible really helped me to see. I mean, it goes into the rivers and the land and where they were and what they were called then and what they're called now. And the pictures in the Bible are of people of color, and yet the scripture is the same as the King James Version. And so that revelation to me in the 90s started me to thinking about, okay, you talk about racism. How many white friends do you have? You know, who are you close to that you can call? Because that's the first thing that you know we like to charge other people with, and white people with, and say, how many black friends do you have? And then I had to ask myself, how many white friends do you have? Because when I was working in Memphis again, I was the only black in the building. So here I am again at a different point in life, in the same circumstance, and I began to deal with my racism then, and that's when I realized that it's the condition of the heart and the other. This Bible, there's an excellent introduction and it's been well put together, and I am so thankful that I discovered it, and so I could read the King James Version, but from an African Indian perspective, and that helped me to deal with my own anger about racism and about slavery and about discrimination. And, it's a condition of the heart. And we are not going to change anybody by charging them with their racist views, because until they want to change their hearts, they're not going to change. We just have to continue to be the example that we can set with each other, and hope that maybe I probably won't live to see it, but maybe the next generation. I am hopeful because the young ones coming up now don't really see color. I was watching some toddlers playing with each other. My great niece, and she's in a class where she is one of 3 blacks in Indiana, and her friend came up to her and just hugged her, and so with children, they, unless taught, don't get that racist thing. And so I am hopeful that as adults we can realize that racism is a false construct. And yes, it still exists, and it's unfortunate, but so do other sins.
Thank you, Lynn. Jared and Leo.
Oh, yes, Lynn. And that's why especially they're trying to stop the schools from teaching any LGBTQ, any kind of education, because they know that kids they really don't care. Like if you tell a toddler, hey, he's gay, he likes, whatever, or, whatever, they usually are like, oh, okay, and they go on and on their day and playing or whatever. But what I was gonna say, I'm with Craig. Um, what's going on right now, it really makes me mad. And it makes me mad because just of all the politics that's going on. But it really infuriates me when, because like many of y'all know, I am a naturalized citizen, right? So the way that things are happening now, I wouldn't be surprised if he all of a sudden starts, saying, hey, if you're caught in a protest and you're a naturalized citizen, then you'll also get deported, right? So that doesn't scare me because every single time, and Lynn, I thank you for this because you have said it through God Talk so many times that God did not give us the spirit of fear. And every single time that that fear starts to get into my heart, I think about you. I think about you, and I'm like, God did not give me the spirit of fear. And you have no idea, but that helps me so much. And for but like I said, when it starts affecting like my husband has had nightmares.
Okay.
Nightmares that I'm getting deported, right? And for me, I'm fine. I'll be fine because I'll be in Mexico. What, you know, I love Mexico. You know, we've even talked about it. Like it's like if things get really bad here, and I know for sure when we retire, we're moving to Mexico, and we're retiring in Mexico. Uh, but it really hurts, like hearing my husband say, "Hey, I had a terrible nightmare last night that you were getting deported," and like I told him, I was like, "You have nothing to worry about. You already know what our plan is if that was to happen." I'm like, "You sell the house, you get the money, and you come to Mexico." I'm like, we're both smart. I'm like, you don't speak a word of it of Spanish. He does a little bit, but I'm like, like you could start teaching, English. You could easily get a job. I was like, there's no problem. But yeah, it's just things like that psychologically, um, when you care about someone, you can't help but constantly think about it. Yeah.
That's wow. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Um, and Jared's smart. He can learn Spanish.
What's
Gregor,
so gut wrenching about that to me, Leo, is why is the conversation, why is the thought process even necessary? You know, it's just it's just so hard to believe that I'm sitting here in the here and the now. And the here and the now is so much different than even what it was um, 10 years ago when Obama was president. Like, it was just seemed like a totally different world. It just seemed like we were on our way toward, I don't know. It just seemed like we were on our way to more of a biblical place. And now we've just done a 360 and yeah. So it's just it breaks my heart that the conversation is even necessary or the thought process.
it does mine too. And I I I worry that I don't know, we can't blame this all on on this administration. And Obama, you know, I mean, I was so excited when he was elected, but a lot of these processes with ICE started during his administration. The deportations skyrocketed during his administration, and so we have to, you know, um, you know, we need to look at the systems and not just and not just focus on changing who we elect. So we need to look at it all. We are getting close to our end of time, and I don't want to leave anyone feeling left out to dry or anything. And a couple of times ago, oh, and by the way, we didn't get to talking about the guidelines at all. So we're going to do it next week. Because it's an interesting discussion, and it's part of how we relate, how we start to relate fairly amongst ourselves. It's just one piece of it, but I think it's helpful. But Krager brought up how we maybe at the end, if we have time, to just kind of go around the room and see how people are sitting with the with the topic tonight, with the discussion tonight, and make sure we're not leaving anything too loose. So if we can all do that in a fairly short way, that would at least then that would help keep us from leaving anybody out by the you know, just because we end up going too long. So I would like to invite Jared and Leo to start, and maybe we can just kind of go in the order that we did when we did our icebreakers.
You first.
No, I just want to say that I like these conversations because they do help me. Just like like Dr. Deloney says, it's part of grief, and grief demands a witness. And what better witnesses than to share it with my church family.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Same. So good. Keep it up. It's working. Like the group is doing really well at being authentic and being real.
Thank you. Okay, I believe Chelsea was next.
Yes, I agree. And you know, one thing that I like about these talks is I'm honestly too afraid to talk about anything like this with people because you never know how someone can react and if someone can commit violence against you because they believe the total opposite. You know, I'm even thinking about doing a self-defense class with one of the girls at work teaching it. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I need to know how to defend myself because I don't. But one thing I did want to touch on, Leo, thank you so much for sharing about, you know, what you just shared because it's something that I also struggle with. You know, like there's so many times where I've wanted to go to protests and, you know, like I want to bring my wife so she can stand up for her people, but I'm so scared that, you know, if she gets caught and, you know, like they don't even care about, you know, if you're a US citizen or not, apparently. They're just sending people to El Salvador and to Alligator Alcatraz and all this crazy stuff going on. And it's terrifying. It really is. Especially because, you know, there's systems put in place to keep us poor, to keep us from living paycheck to paycheck. And, you know, there's been so many times where we've both talked about, let's move to Mexico. But then it's like, okay, what would I even do? Because I don't speak Spanish. So I'm really glad you said something about teaching English too, Leo. that was really good information to know. But you know, like it's just a terrifying thought. And then it's like, how would we even afford to do that? We can't afford to do that. And so I'm really grateful to hear you share that and to hear your feelings about that. So thank you.
If that ever happens, you can come to my grandma's house.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay, I think Alec left, so Krager, you're next. And we are at our closing time, so so
Es muy importante personas estudian español en Duolingo todos los días porque no es too tarde para aprender un idioma nuevo. No me importa cuántos años tiene. You're not too old to learn a second language. That's my statement.
thank you. All right, Lynn.
Yeah, this has been a great conversation, and we just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep doing it, keep being the example. We have love, we have God on our side, and we must never give up. And God did not give us the spirit of fear.
Amen. And I'm really what I see about God in this conversation is just the way we're all connecting and caring, and that is beautiful, and that's, I think, the God of love inside of us connecting us to each other, and I appreciate you all. Mona,
By the way, I have 3 white friends. And one of them was my supervisor in that first job that I had in corporate America. We have been friends all this time.
okay. And you're not too old to make new friends.
Right. That's right. So here I am.
All right. Okay. Mona, did you want to add anything?
No, I'm just enjoying the conversations.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Krager, would you pray us out?
Sure. Holy God and Holy Spirit, we're grateful for another opportunity to get together on God Talk and talk. We talk about God, we talk about spiritual stuff, we talk about everything here, and we are the beloved community online and available 24/7 for anyone who stumbles upon this. May this fall upon ears where it helps heal and helps people move forward. I guess it would be my personal prayer to help me move from pissed to some kind of process, so let's think about what is making us angry in this world, and then what can we do? What action step can we take to facilitate a different outcome, perhaps? So let us think about such things in the coming days and guide us and be with us, and just let us breathe. Let us breathe. In Christ's holy name, amen.
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 Faith without works is dead, Krager, so you gotta work.
All right,
Be safe,
love you all.
everyone.
Love you guys. Have a great rest of the week.
Bye.
Be safe.
Y'all as well.